So it's been a few days now since I applied for the bulk of jobs that I did last week, the 50 jobs, and I wanted to give like an update on how things are going, how I'm feeling, and generally the process that I'm going through. So finished up last week with about 50 applications done, and over the weekend I received anywhere between, I think it was something like 5, maybe 10. It was quite a few automated responses saying that unfortunately, we're not recruiting for this role anymore, or your job skills do not match. So that's already a reasonable chunk of the 50 that I applied for rejected by automated responses. So whether that's the case of my CV didn't get through their filtering system or they were just like ghost roles anyway, I'm not really sure. But the positive news was I had 3 initial calls, and I've had them this week. So I went through the calls and I've written down some notes from sort of the questions that they asked, and I'm just going to kind of go through them now. They're all for different roles, but very much the same technologies. So there was like a DevOps role, a platform role, and an SRE role. And for each of them, when I think I mentioned this before, when I read the job spec, they're looking for very similar things. They want Kubernetes, they want some pipeline experience, they want some infrastructure experience, and Terraform experience. All of which I'm very happy with and I'm very comfortable with. So the calls kind of went as far. So I've jumped on the call, and these are only the initial ones, so they're fairly informal as far as it goes. They're not overly technical, and they opened up the sort of normal, hey, how's it going? And the first question they got out was, why are you looking for a role? And this is pretty much the same for all 3 calls. It was, why am I looking for a role? And I was very honest, and I said, long story short, I got let go from my last role. We didn't part on bad terms, and now I'm looking for a new role. I didn't think there was any point in like sugarcoating it and trying to make out like something else had happened. Not employed. I want to be employed. That's why I'm here. Very cut and dry. And as far as I know, it was well received, but we'll find out. The next thing we did was go through like my CV, so like my resume. And the thing that was consistent through all the calls was the understanding that my resume is very diverse because, of course, I had a stint in retail, and then I had a stint in commercial, and then I had a stint in logistics and like aviation. And there's lots. And my resume, actually, I've cut it off. I think I've only got like 5 years worth of working history on there, but I do link like my LinkedIn profile. And I also put a note there to say that if they want even more history, I can share it. But I've had a huge number of jobs, like 15 maybe, and it's more than a page or two's worth that you can fit on a resume. So I only put like the most relevant last 5 years, and then anything else they can ask for, to be honest. I doubt very much they read all the way to the end anyway. But yeah, so we discussed my resume and we discussed my history and why I changed careers, when and why I changed careers, and what was my main driver for it. Which it always comes down to, that's what I wanted to do. I always wanted to work in tech. It's just the opportunity wasn't there, or rather, I was focused on other things. Once my life settled down, I was able to focus on it and move into it. But yeah, so after discussing that, I've just looked at my notes. After discussing that, she asked me about what my kind of time frame is for starting, which I always found a bit comical because I opened the conversation by saying I am unemployed. So my starting frame is like tomorrow, like today, this afternoon. But typically these places came back and they were like, they are looking for soon, relatively soon. But they still obviously have to go through the other processes. But it could be anything from 2 to 4 weeks. So I found that quite a positive thing, that if I was able to get through the next stages of interview, whatever they might be, that I could be back in a place of work in like a couple of weeks. These are all big ifs, right? People have definitely mentioned some comments that they've been looking for a long time for a role. So I'm hopeful, but hey, I'm also being realistic at the same time. And then which led me on to my question was, okay, cool. So this conversation goes well. Fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed they come back and they say, all went well. What's next? How does that work? And for each of them, it was the same thing. It was a second stage interview with like a tech lead or like management. And that would be a bit more formal and not necessarily technical based, but more technical than the initial call with like the HR recruiter. So that didn't feel too bad. That feels like something I can probably achieve. Well, hopefully will achieve, because it's just a conversation. But then following that, if I'm successful with that conversation, it's the technical panel. Now, the last time I was going through a whole stint of interviews, it was the technical take-home. Naturally, everyone now is leveraging any AI tools they can get a hand on. And the technical take-homes have kind of been made redundant because, what's the point? They give you the piece of work, you can go away and just get AI to do the lot, and then all you got to do is understand what they did and why they did it, which you can ask them to produce a playbook, and you just have to understand the concepts. So I get why the technical take-home is kind of like disappearing, but they've replaced it with a technical panel, which is like a Q&A, like quick fire questions of you on the spot, which again, like I find that a little bit like exams. Exams are not always the most reflective of real world environments. Like I can do an exam and pass it, but that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily qualified to do the job. Equally, like if you ask me a question on the spot and I don't know the answer, in a real world environment, I'm going to go away and answer, like Google it. I'm going to search for the answer. I'm going to read the documentation. I'm going to find it. But, I suppose it's better than the technical take home. I never really liked them, and I didn't like the way it kind of ate into your own personal time. So like if you were somebody that was actually, working full time, looking for a new job, and then you've got a technical take home to take away, it can always be a bit of a pain. But anyway, so they're the next stages. So fingers crossed I hear back from this one, and then I get the next call with the team lead, and then after that, if I'm successful, I get the technical Q&A panel quickfire questions, which if I get to that stage, I'll definitely be doing some prep work for, which I'll probably do, I'll share as well. As I finished up the call, like the initial call with the recruiter, I also asked if there's anything that I can prepare for. I always ask this question whenever I got an interview. So say I was successful in this call, and you're going to give me another one. What can I do to prepare myself? What are they going to be looking for in this call? I mean, there's no harm in asking. And 9 times out of 10, a recruiter will come back and say, yeah, no, it's just an informal to see how you are, to see how you talk, to see how you come across. So they can get a gauge for you as a person before your technical background. So, in terms of the next stage, prep work would probably be minimum, but if I'm successful, the next stage, the technical stage, there'll be a lot of prep work. So I'll keep updating everyone and anyone that's interested. Of course, I'm not the only one experiencing this. Obviously, I've had a lot of comments and people experiencing the same thing. There might be stuff that I'm posting that's going to help. It might not help. I don't know. But if there is anything specific that you want me to talk about that I'm doing, I'll just post it in the comments. I'll happily go through it. I'm trying to respond to them as quick as I can. But they are coming through thick and fast. And I'll see you in the next one.